So this is our 6th edition of the Power Up series, but it's very special because it's the first time that we're doing our office, and feels very different and feels very special to open our space for the first time to guests to come, not just to see the panel, but also understand about our agency, the way we are established here, and then how our office is really translates really deep who we are as a company and as an agency. So very special to have you all here. We have great panels. We're going to have great conversations. I cannot wait to kick off. And I will introduce you all to our wonderful moderator of the night. It's the second time that he's joining us as a moderator. His name is Edward. He's our strategy director, someone that we loved a lot. And Ed, welcome. And then now just run the show.
Hello, hello, can you hear me? Yeah. Where's the energy, guys? Can you hear me? Welcome to our 6th edition of the Power Up series. It's amazing to see all your faces, and as Myra said, it's the first time in our office, so please give yourselves a round of applause for attending, please. So as Myra said, I'm Edward Ogorende. I am a senior creative strategist here. I'll be your host with the most this evening. I'll be moderating. The event will be broken down into 3 30-minute, I need a mic? Okay, 3 30-minute sessions. We have the 10-minute break in between as well, and then we'll finish up the evening with cocktails, canopies, and many more on our rooftop. Today, what's also exciting is we're launching our new white paper. So data storytelling, co-creation, what will it take to build an effective brand community in 2024? So yes, brand community might be that word that you might be hearing, that buzzword that everyone's saying. So what we've done is we've created a white paper to really deconstruct this for brands. So if you want to understand more about what it means and why it matters, then please take a deep dive at the end of the day and dive into the topic a bit more with our beautiful VR experience that we have for you. So please have a look at that. And also, if you don't have time, it is available to download from our website for free, of course. And lastly, before we get started, when I say Fino, you say taste. Fino. Taste. Amazing, amazing. Good energy, good energy. So I want to give a big shout out to our partners today, our wonderful partners, Fino Taste, for supplying us with amazing food and drink. I experienced it myself last year, so just big shout out to them for partnering with us and supplying us all the time with great food. So can we get a round of applause for Fino Taste? So I'm going to take a seat now. Yeah. I'll turn this one on. So let's get started. Are we excited to get started? Okay, so our first session, the evolution of the community economy in a data-driven era. So here we're going to explore the revolutionary empowerment of communities as brand partners, not just as consumers. And today I have the pleasure of welcoming 4 special ladies joining us on stage today. So we have author and former global account manager at TikTok, Sonia Gonzalez. Please give her a round of applause. We have the head of marketing for Canva Europe, Ayana Petkova. Please give her a round of applause. Global advertising executive and chief UK founding member, Camilla Nakagawa.
That's it.
And we have our very own head of innovation at MGM Power, Andrea Cortez. Amazing, amazing. Thank you, ladies, once again for joining us. How are we feeling? We all good?
Good. Amazing.
Yeah, ready to get started? Cool, cool. So I'll start with this. So why do we say, in this day and age, communities have this power and influence? Anyone can start. It is a normal conversation.
To start in house, right? So why do we think communities have the power of influencing? Well, first of all, I may start with maybe a little bit of a controversy. I think community has become such a big buzzword, and a lot of brands think from the very early on, like, oh, our community. What do you mean by your community? You don't have a community. You have a lot of consumers, perhaps, hopefully, but a community? Do you really think you have a community? I think that's something that brands authentically need to question themselves and understand, like, if a CRM of 1,000, 2,000, or hopefully million of users are actually a community. Because yes, a community does have a lot of influence on what the brand should do, and that is what it should happen. But I don't think a lot of brands actually have it.
I want to build on top of what you say, Lena, because on top of you say you want to make a big polemic, maybe I'll make it a little bigger. So I saw one of the data that you shared with us that over 60% of the marketeers, they say they own a digital community, right? I am assuming, I'm sorry for the head of marketing here by my side, then most of those digital communities are Instagram accounts with followers, right? And then here's my community.
Or maybe not very healthy CRMs that is full of
So I think,
contacts.
like a good advertiser, I would say the tagline is, this is database. How do you transform database into community? Because number of followers and CRM mailing list is database. That's it. You have names, you have emails, you have segmentation, that's it. How do you transform database into communities? That's what we should be discussing, right? So when you talk about data, what's important is like, this is not even a discussion. Let's not even ask. If anyone thinks here data is something new, like just, it's not anymore. So the thing now is how we use this data and what is the next step and how do we build a community, right? And I think just my second point and last for now is for some brands, it's really easy, right? So whenever you go to look for communities, there is Harley Davidson case study, Apple case study, Adidas case study. Of course, it's, no one, well, some of us, maybe a few people, wakes up and say, I'm dying to know what this laundry detergent has to say today. Like, what is this, website, or what is this laundry detergent event that I'm dying to join? Yet, I can list a number of amazing stuff that my client for 10 years in Unilever has done that has built community around laundry detergent. So it's like, I think there's two sides of that. So for me, from database until building communities, and also what are the challenges of each category and of each brand, right? Because communities and brand experience varies if you're Apple, Harley Davidson, or if you're, something else. So
I think it might be, sorry, I have like a really raspy voice because I'm a little bit sick, but hopefully it works out. I'll just build on what these two ladies said, because I also saw the same stat, and I was like, what the hell is that? And I think we just have to turn it around to simplify it, right? So 60% of brands say they own a community. That was the statement made in the survey. But if you ask people, or even if we ask in this room, and I ask you, what community are you part of? Are you actually going to say any brands in your first 10 things that you say that you're a community of? Probably not. Most people will not say, I'm part of, like, I don't know, the detergent community or the Colgate community. There are brands, and especially I think luxury brands tend to fall into that, like Dr. Martens or Apple, like kind of lifestyle brands, or brands that have managed to emulate, oh my God, English, a lifestyle around them that have managed to build communities, but very different from databases. The thing that I want to add to that is also, I think, social media. So my background is TikTok. And I'm not going to just advertise TikTok as the greatest platform of all times, but I do think that there has been a shift on social media on how people organize themselves, either around interests or around friend groups. Because I do think that, for example, the Meta platforms have been built on what we call a friend algorithm, right? It's like you connect with your friends, or you tell the algorithm what you're interested in. But platforms like TikTok don't ask you what you're interested in. They naturally find out through the algorithm by probing and trialing, and they put you together with other people that have similar interests to you. And that actually helps people come together in communities they might have not thought they were part of initially. And I think you were asking initially, how have communities evolved? And I think platforms like TikTok, like X, like Reddit are built differently to platforms like Instagram and on Facebook, because they bring people together in ways they might have not expected before or might have not have thought of before. And when that happens, it really brings a power with it that brands then woke up to, in recent years, and we're like, oh my God, these niche communities we never thought of are actually much more powerful than we initially thought they were. And how can we tap into them? So I think that's where this newfound interest and buzzword around community comes from, because brands are waking up to the power of communities.
From, I guess, the perspective of a brand and a product that actually harnesses the power of communities quite well, we think community is at the center of what we do and what our product is. Our product is about empowering the world to design, and naturally that attracts communities to us. It's people who are on a mission or are trying to make something happen, and they need design to support that something. And so if I think about Canvas communities, we have communities of teachers and educators who are looking for ways to bring design skills into the classrooms and teach the next generation with visual communication. We have communities such as non-for-profits who need visual communication in order to be successful at what they do. We have communities of creators who want to create and want to empower others to use what they create to multiply a message and in some cases make an income. So we tend to think about communities as integral to what we do as a brand rather than a database. We are actually in service of communities, and communities are attracted to the service that we have to offer. To kind of go back to the question of why do we say they have power, we see it in multiple ways. One, we see it in a way of they have power in the broader world with the things that they do. And then more from a product or a brand perspective, for us they have power because they, on one hand, help us generate content. Canva is in over 100 languages in over 190 countries. The only way we can be in so many languages in so many countries is because we have communities of creators who love using us and create templates that our other users can use. So that is an incredibly powerful synergetic relationships and happens very naturally for us. They also have power because they give us direct feedback. We have an open communication with them. We actually invest in having that relationship and building it out and getting feedback back into the product in order to evolve it and help them do more with what we have to offer. So for us, it's a power because it helps us evolve our product. It's also power because it helps us make our product better. And it's also power because in some cases, our community members are an extension of our brand. They're so passionate for Canva and for what they can do in Canva and for what Canva brings, that they're out there, and oftentimes some of our, we call them Canvasadors, incredibly engaged community members. Sometimes they'll actually represent Canva in events and speak on behalf of Canva, or they'll do training classes on behalf of Canva. And they allow us to reach other communities that we cannot reach just by nature of how many people we have on the ground in a given country. And so we see it as actually a really, really integral relationship and central to what we do and who we are as a brand.
Just one thing on what you're saying, I think the important takeaway is communities are not just marketing strategy or communication strategy. Communities are business and product strategy, right? So I think sometimes when we talk to client or to marketers or even brands is they help us build content and they engage, but actually it's where you get honest feedback from, and then you improve your product, one. Two, you know what other revenue you could bring. So I think it's very commonly for us to limit the role of community on they help us create content or they help us put a good word of our brands to other people, but actually it's a sort of insight of business as well and of product improvement, right? So it's apart from marketing and communications only.
And I think it goes beyond that too, because I think if you think about them just as a source of something, for brands that are starting up, that again, going back to the fact that many brands don't have a community, they have just a pool of a lot of users, hopefully, or just starting up, is how do I start doing these efforts to create like what I hope will turn into a community like Canva. Today, Canva, you guys obviously have to put effort and have a strategy, an ongoing capacity of your team to nurture that community, right? Because you cannot leave it just there. But for those brands that don't have it, how do we start? And it's super important for brands to take a deep dive into, I'm gonna be open to answer questions. I'm gonna be open to receive feedback early on what is working on my brand, what is not working. Help me co-create this. Early on here in MG Empower, we were doing a test out of creating a community for a big company. And one of the key learnings we got is we were trying to partner with affiliates, with influencers that are just focused on selling products. And before we even asked them to start selling for this brand, we stopped and asked them, like, what has worked for you? What hasn't worked for you? What are your frustrations when coming into affiliate programs? And what we've learned from them early on to help us co-create the brand, co-create the program, was much more nurturing for later on having a spike on success when we launched it. And they felt much more interested and involved in making this project a success or making the brand a success because they felt part of the building up of it. So I think, and that comes back to something that is very natural on our human beings, is our need and seek of belonging. I want to be heard, I want to be listened as a human being. And if brands take that toll beyond their conversion goals, but more into why do I exist as a brand? Or why do I exist as a program? What is the core? Like, obviously, yes, it's a business. You want to sell. That's honest, true, of course. But if you go dive deep into beyond sales, why would people like my brand? So another great case study that we're very proud of is Bumble. Bumble, through the years, has been doing an amazing job on creating opportunities for people to go even outside the app, right? It's an app, it's digital. But they've been creating over the past year opportunities for people to meet and greet with other people that use their app. And that's completely out of their core of being digital. But they're creating spaces for people to meet, for people to feel they have a belonging. That it's not like the core is not, oh, our interest is Bumble. No, our interest is getting to meet people. That's the core, getting to meet people in a safe environment. And I think that's where a lot of brands need to go back to, like my why, my purpose, and how can I translate that into something valuable for my user, right? So in real life events, or the normal case study that we know about communities of Adidas runners, they extrapolated their core business into, well, people like to run. That's what they like to do. Well, let's create a space for them to do that instead of just focus on conversions. Of course, there is an opportunity there to showcase product and all of this, but there's an opportunity for the user to meet other people.
And to echo that, actually, the way we think about it is part of our mission is to empower the world to design. Empowering others is one of our core values, and our communities are about empowering more people. And so people seek connections with others who want to empower and are happy to empower and want to be part of this overall brand and vision as well. So for us, we're a brand in service of others who empower, and just a tool for our communities.
Can I just say one more controversial thing?
Go
and
on,
then
go
you
on.
can
Ed's is
ask,
not gonna speak. We just
and then you can
just-
ask
okay.
the
I'm
next
enjoying
question.
the conversation.
Thank you
so
for
it's
coming,
just-
Ed,
Can
to
I just
our
say,
TED Talks.
we were preparing for like 20 questions, but we're just talking about this one question at the moment.
I chose the right one, right?
Is a good one. Okay, controversial thought. I really don't think every brand should have a community or should even seek to have a community. And I don't know if my panelists agree with me or not, but we'll see in a second. But I do think it's a great mechanic or tactic to build a brand. So when we think about what is a brand, right, it's kind of the echo of what people think about you. It's your reputation, right? And I think Canva, you were giving a great example earlier, and you as well, about how a lot of these brands, which I would call ankle biter brands, you know, when they initially started, they were kind of the minors in the competition, right? Like the small ones that nobody thought would go anywhere, and then they built this amazing communities, and they grew up to be amazing companies, like Canva, for example. And so, building community is amazing to build brand because you build with the community, right? It's a co-creation process, and I'm sure they will talk about on the next panel about that. But I don't think that all brands deserve to have a community or should aim to have a community.
Why? Why?
I mean, do you want to be part of the Colgate community? Tell me.
If it makes my teeth whiter, yes.
Oral-B. No, I do think there is, you know, what purpose does a community serve for the brand? That's a very important question. We already discussed that today. But also, what is the benefit of the community to the end user, right? Are we just extracting the whole time? Are we extracting? Are we co-creating with people? Are we asking them what our brand should be, what our product should be? Are we asking them for feedback? Are we asking them to become brand ambassadors? All of that. But also, what are we giving back? And I think there's a lot of communities out there that are not giving back enough, and that's why they don't work. And so, you know, when you say communities like Bumble, you know, they give back, and that's why people want to be part of it. But when we say, as you were saying earlier, you know, some brands are calling their Instagram following a community. No, it's not, because what are you giving back? You're giving back an Instagram reel every 2 days. You're giving back a reel, a little bit of entertainment. For what? So I think that's maybe a controversial opinion, but that's where I see a lot of brands being at the moment in their headspace, being like, oh, we want to build a community, but they're not willing to really invest into it the way that they should.
So would you say that's more kind of like an approach to their internal strategy to understand how they kind of have that impact on their community?
I think community is a buzzword that is often used as a tactic internally a lot. You know, it's just another thing. It's like, oh, a podcast, a community, a newsletter.
So what then defines a community? I know we've been talking about it a lot, but because we've spoken about different kind of brands, but what defines, you know, a community for a brand? How do we look at that?
I'm going to answer it from like a platform perspective, because
Yeah.
I think that's where I have the most expertise, but I think that's also a question for these two ladies who have built amazing communities. From a platform perspective, and that's what we always said on TikTok, it needs to be absolutely authentic. And that's when campaigns on TikTok and communities on TikTok work the best, when brands give back and when it's really authentic. And, you know, if you just put an ad out there, or if you just say like, hey, please do this dance challenge, it doesn't work. And we all know it doesn't work. And so I think from what makes a community from a platform perspective is that it's a give and take. A little bit like, what's a good example? Maybe Ryanair? Ryanair is so hilarious on the platform. And you can tell me like, okay, you know, what do they give you, right? It's entertainment. But they do make fun of themselves. They take all the feedback that they get from the platform every single day, and they make really funny videos out of it, but also they encourage the community to really have an open conversation with it. And I think that's what makes a community.
I think the only thing I would say on top of what you're saying right now is that I completely agree. By the way, I love TikTok. My wife is here. She works for TikTok for years. Maybe you know each other. Yeah, but she's a global brand lead for small, medium businesses. She's amazing, by the way. Hi, babes. Thanks for coming. So I love TikTok. It pays half of our rent. I love TikTok, by the way. Feeds my dogs, my kids. Okay. But coming back to, I wouldn't like to. The only thing I don't appreciate on the discussion. I know you gave the platform point of view because that's where you're, of course. But I think it's very common to limit the discussion on platforms and the channels rather than more conceptually, strategically what a community is, right? So I think the communities, they are so complex because human beings are complex. If you ask me, I am a Swifter, Taylor Swift fan. I am a Tottenham Hotspur fan, by the way. Woo! Oh my God, top of the league, top of the league.
Oh no!
Okay.
Oh no! This conversation's going left.
Okay, okay. Meet me at the wine session.
Okay.
Our Spurs fan. Come on, you Spurs. Okay, sorry for that. Sorry. Coming back to my okay, I thought Taylor Swift was gonna be a hit, but it turns out that Tottenham Hotspur is a hit. I loved it.
Wow!
Okay, so okay, sorry for that. So okay, coming back, I think as we just saw, communities, right, are so we just saw it, right? It's so complex.
Yeah.
I don't engage with Tottenham Hotspur. Let me continue on that on the social media that much. You know, that's not my engagement when I go to the matches and when I meet some people like I'm gonna meet and discuss about this brand on the real life. So, and I think some brands, they mistake their community power on followers or their power to create only the digital communities, right? Which is not correct. Of course, for some brands who are basically that measure their success, whether in stories, engagement, etc. That is completely true. But I think the conversation on communities should go beyond, right? We just said about Bumble, how it's about creating true life experiences, going on and engaging. I think you if you're, an Instagram account, or we all agreed, like no one thinks an Instagram account is a community, let's be honest. However, if you do have something that goes deeper and extrapolates that, it might become a community. And lastly, I agree with you, of course, it's not every brand that should own the community, but brands should be clever to leverage on the communities that have their feet. So I'm going back to football as it was a hit. I was very surprised because, you know, I don't buy Persil. My main brand on washing like clothes detergent is a very sustainable one because my wife is very sustainable. And then I started being impacted by Persil out of a sudden because they made a very nice partnership with Arsenal. And actually, it was quite good because they leverage on a very powerful community, which is football fans community, right? So here's an example of a brand that saw the power of a community, the engagement rate of those fans, and leverage on that. And they're not saying like, they're not going to Arsenal fan page or Instagram account or TikTok and just putting their package and their claim by click here and buy. No, they're giving tips on like how to wash your dirt. They're showing the players. Lovely Saka, love Saka. You know, like telling this, love Saka, love. One day he will be at Tottenham. Let's write it out.
Oh no.
So you know, I think that's the magic. It's not all brands, but we should understand that community is what we're looking for into the future, and how do you leverage on powerful communities, and also how you do it clever, right? So they're talking to me, and in a very amazing way, by the way, right? Showing what's the power of a powerful brand. Lastly, there was a very nice paper on McKinsey that they did last year, Power of Communities. Of course, there is a new MG Power paper, which I didn't know. It's launching today. So I'm talking about McKinsey. And they make a timeline of the evolution until we get to communities. So first we had mass media, which solves for reach. Everything's about the reach. Who am I talking to? I'm going to that place where the magazine or the TV show. And then we had the era of precision and performance and segmentation, which is resolve for performance and for effectiveness and for conversion. And now in the area of community, it solves for influence. And I love that, right? How you go from reach, which is it's like a one-way conversation, until segmentation, when we realize digital can actually make conversion, until we are in influence moment where like, okay, now it's everyone's talk, and how do you become relevant? So that's a really, really great way of saying how communication and marketing evolved through that.
Yeah.
Right.
You gonna go?
Yeah, I just don't want to
we're-
interrupt the
we're-
questions.
We're nearly done. Go on.
I think you just touched on a very important point, that is the influence. And going back to the progression and the development, I think brands have a lot to learn from influencers and from even early celebrities. We just saw what was created when you mentioned sports. Sports, music are the most, if you think about it time-wise, they are the ones that created and originated what a fandom is, what a community is, because they had, again, a purpose, an interest that combined people together, that brought people together. Today, maybe not the biggest influencers, but influencers that are even like niche influencers. If you go to them, they have an ongoing conversation with their community. And I think that's a big difference that brands need to take into account when you talk about like what makes a community. First thing is having a two-sided conversation, a two-way street conversation. It's not about just asking people to be part of your community and like just pushing entertaining content, but actually how are you building a conversation with that community that goes beyond your conversion purposes and that doesn't revolve around your brand. We were just talking last week, we had the opportunity to do a podcast with one strategist from Reddit. And she was talking about that, how in Reddit, what works best for brands is not to open their own channels and their own threads. No, because people don't want to talk about a brand unless it's perhaps negatively. But people want to talk about what they're interested in, what joins them together. So how can brands jump into, for example, a Reddit and make an impact is, first of all, listening properly and knowing how to use it to not even like do social listening about what people are saying about me, but what are people saying about my category? What can I learn from that? And that's also part of building your first party data that today is so important, because with the third party data going down, more and more brands need to figure out strategies to have these conversations. And data is not just about quantitative data, it's about qualitative data, sentiment analysis that is always a challenge for brands to look into and to be able to scrap it from social platforms. So that's the first thing. Build a two-way street conversation with people. Listen up, not just on feedbacks and reviews, but for example, great advancements are going on, I'm going to say Instagram, with the broadcasting channels. Right now, it's a one straight channel, right? That like Instagrammers, like influencers can have with their community. But just with that advancement, you can see the power that they're having on building their relationship with their consumers, with their followers. The fact that influencers can send a voice note to their following, that changes a lot. And imagine what they will be able to do when Meta is able to enable a two-way street conversation. They're already working on making available polls, if I'm not wrong. That's a start. And that's where a lot of feedback can come through. Another thing is, what do you do with that data?
Yeah, I was going to ask you that.
What do you do? Like, start co-creating. Start using that, not just to hear, because if people want to be heard. But what you do with that is what actually is going to start delighting that consumer, driving it to become from a user to an actual member of your community. Because I feel represented, I feel heard.
Yeah.
That's something super important. And another thing is about what you were just saying. It's making sure that if you have the purpose of building a community, if that's your thing, put investment into it. It's not a one action, here I'm trying to do this community, let's see if it works. Put investment on it. If you're betting on it, bet on it long term. It's not a one-time off. So you need capacity and you need a strategy to keep delighting them. Something that has worked really well recently, actually, last week it was a little bit of a debacle, but Sephora, they built an amazing membership program. Amazing. And what they just did, I believe like 2 months ago, is that instead of doing just loyalty as rewarding consumers based on their purchase, they're gamifying it. And they're rewarding consumers beyond their purchase. They're rewarding them if they create content for them, if they tag them on social. They're rewarding them if they visit the store. They're like different touch points where people feel like small wins get me far. I don't have to just have a relationship with the brand by buying for it, but there are other ways that I can interact with the brand. And the fact that the brand sees that and rewards me on that, that is a different kind of approach, because it shows a consumer that, yes, of course, we all know it's about money and business and making money, but you need to give more than what you take.
Amazing.
I'd actually be slightly controversial on that one
Oh, no.
because actually it's not just about money. If you really believe in community and you want to invest in it, you actually should put your money where your mouth is. And so Canva gives the product for free to most of its communities, exactly for that. We could be charging for it, but we're not, because we believe that we need to empower those communities. And so to me, there's something around almost step one before the dialogue. There's authenticity that creates connection. And then it's about building that two-way dialogue and investing in the capacity to do that. Beyond that, it's also about empowering the community. So it's not just about having a conversation, it's about what happens after that conversation takes place to enable that community to be effective and continue to operate. And also how you listen to your community, to your point, like how do you evolve your product and services and harness that knowledge, because once you engage your community, if you don't do anything with it, you're gonna lose it quite quickly. Like it's not a one-way street here. And then the final bit that you mentioned to me that's really important is that it's that recognition and celebration of your community. So it's about recognizing when they're achieving something that isn't related to your brand, but being proud of what you've been able to inspire and allow them to do. And there's an element as well of creating synergetic relationships in your communities that can help you all grow.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. Sorry, we are out of time for the first conversation. I mean, one question goes a long way, right? And as a proud Arsenal fan, I had to sit there.
I'm sorry to all Arsenal fans. I'm just in the heat, you know, when you talk about football.
It's okay.
I love you.
Honestly,
I love
honestly, it was an amazing conversation, and really great to see your passion and understanding about how we actually build communities. And I love the way we took it away from, you know, the typical spare that we thought it was in. So can we give our panelists a round of applause, please? Amazing, amazing.